get you in the mood? You ready for tonight's big moment, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Fox News? Well, it is the critical theme heading into and following the President's State of the Union address: spending and our $14 trillion debt. The President is expected to stress investing tonight, investing into the economy, while Republicans say it is time to end the, quote, spending binge in Washington. How do both sides come to consensus on that? Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor, and Lars Larson is a syndicated radio host as well. All right, panel, so, the President's going to get out there and say we need to invest. We need to invest in particular in infrastructure, such as roads and bridges, and in education and in technology, and that has prompted some on the right, Lars, to come out already and say invest is a synonym for spend. And what we should be doing now is focused like a laser on the debt and not spending more.
We should be focusing at least on getting the federal government to just spending no more than it takes in. And it doesn't make any sense. This investment stuff, this is just trying to dress up the idea of more spending. The fact is the president wants to be able to spend that way because he puts a lot of money in the pockets of the people who are likely to vote for him in 2012. A lot of public employee unions, and that works out well for the president. Frankly, I think that this investment idea is just foolish. The idea that we need to fix our roads and bridges, yes, is true. But education, I think that should be paid for locally. I don't want some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. deciding what should be done in the schools. In fact, the first thing I'd do is get rid of the Department of Education and put all that money back at the local level where the folks closest to the issue can make the decisions.
Leslie, you've got some groups coming out now, in particular this one that's running an ad now, talking about how it appears the president is going to be ignoring, for the most part, the need to cut back on spending tonight, saying it appears that the era of Washington's fiscal irresponsibility will continue. And they point to, the call for more spending on things like infrastructure by noting that, the stimulus bill of 2009 already included almost $50 billion on money for infrastructure. And then in September, President Obama called for an additional $50 billion on spending on infrastructure. So how much are we supposed to spend on infrastructure as opposed to paying down some of the debt?
Well, I think everybody's focusing on that one area, infrastructure. But, Abraham Lincoln invested in railroads and was laughed at. It made a major change in our country, not only in job creation, but also in the economy. And I believe the same investment in infrastructure as the president is talking about will create jobs in going forward. When you talk about education, Lars, how are we going to do Pell Grants on a local level? And how are we going to let all these kids in America who can't afford necessarily to have a secondary higher education be able to pay for that? I don't think we should cut education in the Department of Education.
But why, Leslie, would he not be focused tonight on tightening our belt, tightening our nation's fiscal belt, given the debt and the deficit situation that we're looking at, and given the message he seems to have received from the voters on November 2nd?
I think this president is committed in his stimulus package. Economists have said, nonpartisan economists have said, although we have turned a corner and slowly, we all know that the tortoise beat the hare, and we're impatient. And this president has good ratings right now. He is primed to go forward with his plan. He is primed to go forward working with Republicans and has to, as they have the majority in the House. So I don't believe the speech has to be or should be just about cutting in any spending. And he is going to cut areas that are job eliminators when it comes to regulation. So I think he will address both, but he will go forward with more investment in the economy.
Go ahead, Lars.
Do you really think that this president is going to trim back on regulation? The only regulation he could take issue with was saccharine regulations. I mean, let's get real. If he wants to trim back on regulation, maybe he should trim the regulations that have basically forbidden drilling for oil in the Gulf or drilling for oil in Anwar or building new refineries. This doesn't make any sense. And borrowing money to fund infrastructure investments and putting us further into debt is not doing the country any good. That's not the way to get the economy going again. The way to get the economy going again is to trim back the regulations that keep American business from building and then let American business put its money at risk, and the investments will pay off to private business.
Well, he is supposed to speak also about the need to avoid piling on more debt. The question is simply whether, those messages are consistent and whether he'll put forth policies that the American people believe can do both at the same time. We'll find out in a few short hours. Leslie and Lars, thank you.
Thanks, Megyn.